Yerevan, a city that most people, including myself until a few weeks ago, could not pinpoint on a map. But if I told them it's a capital city of a country called Armenia, they still wouldn't be able to do so. Armenia is part of the Kaukasus region that borders Iran and Turkey to the south, Russia to the north, the Black Sea to the west and the Caspian Sea to the east. It consists of 3 countries, Armenia, Azerbaijan and Georgia, that all used to be part of the Soviet Union. And Armenia, of all former Soviet republics that I've been to, is the one that has by far the most obvious influence from the Soviet era. Not only because most of the signs are Armenian and Russian, some in fact are exclusively in Russian, but also the buildings and a lot of the architecture and the brutalist style that we all associate with the Soviet Union. However, over 30 years after the end of the USSR, many of these places have seen the best time behind them, and have been left behind and become lost places. I've been wanting to visit Armenia for a long time, and the capital city was an easy choice to arrive, stay, and make some day trips from there. Of course, I also spent some time exploring the city. It was an absolutely surreal experience, but one that I thoroughly enjoyed. So, without further ado, let me take you on a trip to Armenia's capital Yerevan, to show you some of the architecture, its history and lost places that used to be lively and full of people, but are rotten today. Let's start our exploration of the city in the north, particularly in Victory Park. This park is on a hill overlooking the city and commemorates the victory of the Soviet Union over Germany in World War II. There's a small amusement park inside that gives slight horror movie vibes and was clearly not in the best shape. There were some kids on the rides, but it's hard to argue that the best days of these attractions are behind them. The curious thing about this is that this place is called Victory Park and remembers fallen soldiers from the past. In most countries, and especially those countries with a high level of patriotism and cultural pride, these places have a huge impact on the identity of a people. Some of these places are really out of shape, and I was really curious to see what these places look like today and to imagine what it must have looked like before, because it definitely looks super surreal, in some places sad, and some places really pretty as well. This amusement park is right next to the monument of the Mother Armenia, the country's female personification. You can even go inside and explore some historical documents, if you speak Armenian. Fun fact, this statue replaced a previous statue at the same location of Joseph Stalin. From Victory Park you have a great view of the city and Mount Ararat in the background, here behind the clouds. This mountain is holy, because in Armenian mythology this place was the home of the gods. It is also said to be the place where pieces of Noah's Ark were found, which you already know if you've watched the show Manifest. Crossing the street via this pedestrian tunnel, we reach a memorial to the 50th anniversary of the October Revolution. It's an impressive statue that, just like Victory Park, is a little out of shape and feels more like a construction site. Walking towards the city center, we will stroll down the impressive Cascade complex. This construction started in 1980 and consists of several layers with fountains, stairs and plants. It was planned many decades before in order to connect the northern and southern parts of the city. Those plans were largely forgotten until the late 1970s. Construction was abandoned multiple times, lastly because it was seen as nothing but a relic of the Soviet era. In the early 2000s, the project was revitalized and finished around 2010. Inside the complex, we're going to visit the art center that is free to visit and includes many modern art pieces. Aside from the lost places and brutalist architecture, there are of course also many beautiful streets that resemble Spanish or French cities, as well as parks where local artists can display their work. One of the most impressive buildings in the city is the Opera House. Construction started on November 28, 1930, the 10th anniversary of the Soviet Republic of Armenia. Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake was the first ballet performed in 1935. However, the building was not completed until 1953, even though it had been open for 30 years. Another prominent building is the Moscow Cinema, with its troubling past. It was constructed in the 1930s on the same location of a church that the Soviets destroyed in order to eliminate religion in the country. However, some churches survived the Soviet crackdown on religion, such as the Katholike Church that was completed almost 800 years ago. The Soviets did, however, destroy a 17th century basilica on the same location that was constructed after a large earthquake in Yerevan. During the demolition, they discovered the older church within the structure of the larger basilica. because historians and archaeologists protested due to the cultural significance of the engravings that date back to 1264. The church was preserved. A popular cafe is Lumen Coffee 1936. It's a very quiet and intimate cafe that serves around 8 to 10 people at a time and also serves as a bookstore. Now, I don't want to be cynical, but I'm not sure how to watch YouTube on the thing. If you could, it would be a great moment for you to subscribe to my channel. Another park that screams Soviet Union louder than a Lenin statue riding a bear with a vodka bottle in one hand and borscht in the other is Poplavov Park, with the absolutely freaky metro station Yerita Sardaka. This circular park is home to several statues and buildings. Some of them look like the location of a horror movie. I teased this metro station before, but let's enter now and descend, no pun intended, into the metro system of Yerevan. In general, the metro stations look quite Soviet, which I absolutely loved. Yerevan is one metro line that passes through the most important locations, such as the Republic Square and the central train station. You can buy one of these small orange coins for 100 drams at a small kiosk inside every metro station and use them as a ticket. A very nice building is the Blue Mosque of Yerevan that was constructed in 1768 and is today the only mosque in the entire country. It serves a small Muslim community in Armenia that only consists of around 1,000 people. However, the most beautiful square in the entire city is the monumental Republic Square that hosts the Parliament and the National History Museum. It's also the center of the city and therefore the location for events such as protests and musical performances at night. I really hope this video doesn't come over as too negative. In fact, I really enjoyed my trip to Yerevan, which is an incredibly fascinating city that's very different from places tourists, including myself, usually travel to. And that's what I find so fascinating about visiting new places. They make you open your eyes to lifestyles and ways of life that you might not consider that much in your day-to-day. What I always find tricky about people talking about other countries is that they often treat them as a zoo. You shouldn't go to some place to judge and talk down on it. Instead, it's a place that people made the way they did, and they're happy with it. Of course, no place is perfect, but people here seem to enjoy their life, laughing, they're outside, hanging out with friends and going to cafes. I only could get a glimpse of life in Yerevan, and there's a lot of beautiful places, but also a lot of places that really confused me, but that doesn't mean that there's something wrong. I couldn't recommend enough to visit the city, but also explore Armenian cuisine and culture. In the next videos, I continue exploring this country, so if you don't want to miss that, please don't forget to subscribe.